Hey, happy Sunday to everybody. Welcome to another episode of Andrew's Journey. On this particular video, I would like to give my opinion of how I feel about Montgomery, Alabama so far. And I guess to some extent, how I feel about Alabama in general so far. Now, I've only been here in Alabama for a handful of days, so bear that in mind as you listen to me. But before before I came down here a few days ago, I was down here for about a week, about a month ago. So, but like I said, I haven't been here in Alabama for real long. I've only been here for a handful of days. I would say total, I've probably been here for a couple of weeks. But I just want to give my insight about Montgomery and about Alabama. I mean, so far, I'm. so far, I got pretty good feelings about Montgomery. I mean, I don't think Montgomery is as bad of a city as some people on social media may say Montgomery is. I mean, I will say Montgomery, like many other major cities, Montgomery does have its issues concerning crime and drugs and things of that sort. I mean, a lot of the issues that you'll find in a lot of your major cities, Montgomery does have a lot of that. So in that aspect, Montgomery is not a whole lot different than other cities of its size. Now, I will say the cost of living here in Montgomery is fairly low. I mean, I would say if you come down here with $60,000 to $70,000, you can buy something very decent. You can buy a house that's on a quarter of an acre or larger. And I would say, as far as it goes for the house, you can probably get you a nice 2,000 square foot home in decent shape, moving ready, nice and clean, in a decent part of the city for around 70 plus thousand bucks. Which in many cities you go to, $70,000 is not going to be enough to buy you anything decent, if anything at all. I mean, there's a lot of cities where if you buy a house for 70 grand, you'll probably be somewhere in the ghetto. Here in Montgomery, if you come to $70,000, you will be on a decent. You'll be in a decent side of town. Now, one thing I notice about Montgomery is no matter what side of the city I go on, there's going to be a fair number of houses that are going to have bars on the window. So for those of you that are coming down to Montgomery, looking to move, looking to buy a house, I mean, don't let the bars on the window scare you from looking at houses in this city. Not all areas here in Montgomery are bad. Some areas I can tell by looking at the neighborhood. I can tell those areas are no good. But there's other parts of Montgomery that the area looks good during the day. But I would encourage anybody, and this is a good practice to exercise anywhere you go. Like if you're looking to buy a house here in Montgomery, or anywhere for that matter, take a couple of drives at night. Like take a drive into the city at night, like whatever area of the city you're going to be living in, take a drive into that area on a weekday night, and then take a drive into that same area on a weekend night. Because sometimes there's a significant difference of how the area is during the weekday, during daylight hours, versus even the weekend daylight hours, versus the weekday night versus the weekend night. So I would encourage you people to take plenty of drives through the neighborhoods, take plenty of drives through the city, both during the day and at night. That way you get a healthy feel of the city and the different neighborhoods, and you'll have a better analysis of the area before you make such a big decision as in the purchasing a home. Now, I would say at this point, I'm kind of 50-50 on whether I want to purchase a house here in Montgomery, or rather I'm going to keep my house at home in Indiana and just continue to travel the country and camp out on my van. I'm kind of 50-50. I mean, there are things about Montgomery I like, obviously. That's why I came back down here. I mean, right now I'm working at the Hyundai plant. But there's also things about Montgomery that I don't like. I mean, I would say as far as the people down here are pretty nice. I mean, I will say so far, I don't see a whole lot of difference between how people here in Montgomery are versus how people are at home in Indiana. I don't see a big difference. I really don't. I mean, there's a lot of nice people in Indiana as well. I just came down here because, to be quite frank, I really don't want to have to deal with any more Midwestern renters if I don't have to. But if I find later that it's going to be more financially sound for me to stay in Indiana, to keep my home base in Indiana, then either A, if I got to deal with a little bit of Midwestern renters, okay, or well, so what? I mean, you know, it's part of life. You don't get everything you want. Or two, I'll end up buying me an RV, and every time winter comes, I'll just make it a point to travel either south, or I'll travel to the southwest, like to Arizona or something. But that's a decision that I need to make, and I'm going to take a little bit of time on that. I'm going to take a little bit of time here in Montgomery and save up some money. And like I said on one of my earlier videos, if I do buy a house here in Montgomery, I intend to purchase a house and pay cash, because I really don't want to deal with any kind of mortgage payments and I've looked into buying a home from some of these investors to where you can buy it on land contract, but to be quite frank, I think a lot of these investors are a bunch of scumbags. I mean, but what I've found out so far is a lot of these investors, they'll take a house that has a market value of, let's say, $30,000. They'll jack the price up to $50,000, and then they'll tack on a whopping 10% interest, which in itself is triple the interest that somebody would pay on a conventional loan, and then they'll sell you the house. Now, when you do some simple math, the amount of money you're paying on the house is obviously way too much, and I refuse to get ripped off. I don't care how much I think I like to live in an area, I'm not gonna get ripped off by nobody. So if that means living out of my van so I can save the maximum amount of money in the shortest period of time, and then purchasing a home and paying cash, then that's what I'm gonna do, and most likely that's what I'm gonna do. But I'm gonna take the next couple of months or so and just kind of get acclimated with the city, get acclimated with my job, save up a ton of money. That way, when I go and I purchase my house, I know I'm making a sound decision, and the house will at least be habitable. I don't want to purchase anything to where I'm going to have to rewire, do plumbing, or do anything, you know, crazy. And I don't want to purchase anything that's in a dangerous neighborhood. So those are my concerns about the housing here in Montgomery. But I will say Montgomery does offer some of the lowest price housing out of many of your major cities in the country. I mean, I would say Montgomery is one of the lowest price cities that you can live in. So I mean, that's another thing about Montgomery that I like is the fact that it's extremely affordable. I mean, you don't have to work yourself to an early casket here in Montgomery like you do in other cities. So another thing about Montgomery I like is I like the climate. I mean, well, maybe I'm speaking prematurely. Now I know in the summertime down here, it's gonna get very hot, it's gonna get very humid, because when I used to live in southern Tennessee, which is only a few hours north of here, I remember in the summers it got very hot, it got very humid, but I also remember during the winter, which is one of the big reasons why I'm back down here in the south, I remember in southern Tennessee during the winters were relatively mild and short. Now in southern Tennessee, we got maybe 3 inches of snow once a year. Like, here's an example of snow in southern Tennessee. You might get hit with a couple of inches of snow or so on Monday, but by Tuesday afternoon, the sun is out, all the snow is gone. By Wednesday morning, it's gonna be like it never even snowed in the first place. Now here in Montgomery, according to some of the statistics concerning the climate down here, Montgomery doesn't really get snow. I mean, Montgomery gets less than 1 inch of snow a year. Somebody down here told me that the last time Montgomery seen snow was back in 2018. So that's pretty impressive as far as I'm concerned. Now, it does get cold down here. I mean, someone told me that the coldest it will get is in the 30s, which I can live with that, because in Indiana, the last couple of winters, it has dipped into the negatives for a week or two at a time. But on a normal, during the winter time in Indiana, you know, it can get, I mean, you know, it can stick around the 20s down into the teens. So if it gets it down into the 30s here in Montgomery, and that's the coldest it gets, hey, I'm cool with that all day. I mean, honestly, I'd rather deal with hot, humid summers than to deal with cold winters full of snow and ice and salt that's going to eat away at your enamel on your vehicle. That's just me. And another thing about Montgomery is for those of you that are coming from the west or the northeast, or you're coming from the north, I mean, when you come down here to Montgomery, or for that matter, when you come down here when you come down to any part of the South, I mean, you know, try to be courteous, try to have some manners, try to have an element of respect for the culture down here. I mean, it is a little different down here than it is up north or over on the west coast. So when you come here to the South, man, you know, there's a lot of good people down here. And I firmly believe that Montgomery is like many other places in this country. It's what you make of it. But there's certain people that come down here and they don't respect the culture. They're nasty, they're rude. They cut you off in traffic. And then they got the nerve to tell you how the South sucks, the city sucks, and where they came from is better, blah, blah, blah. You got certain people that might try to instill their political opinion on you. And so if you're one of those kind of people that are real political, and you want to come down here and you want to instill your political opinion, don't do it. Because if you do, it's going to do nothing but cause trouble for you. And it's going to make your life here somewhat miserable. And why would you want to come down here just to make people mad? I mean, that makes no sense. I mean, my attitude is, if you come down here and for whatever reason you don't like it down here, you know, be an adult, keep your mouth shut, be respectful, pack your stuff and go to wherever it is you came from, or go somewhere else where you might like better. I mean, don't come down here being all ignorant and disrespectful and thinking that your stuff doesn't stink because you came from, let's say, Seattle. I mean, so if you're from Seattle or wherever you're from, you come down here and you don't like it for whatever reason, go back to Seattle. I mean, I promise there's going to be plenty of people that will come down here and they'll love it. And they'll make Montgomery their new home. And at this point, I'm 50-50. I would say I'm leaning more towards making Montgomery my new home, which is the whole reason why I'm living out of my van. The reason why I'm living out of my van is not because I have to, it's because I want to. The reason why I want to is because I want to save the maximum amount of money in the shortest period of time. That way I can buy me a house down here, pay cash, and truly be a member of the Montgomery community. That's the reason why I'm not renting. I'm living out of my van instead. I don't want to make this video too long. So as far as how I feel about Alabama in general, I'm gonna make a whole separate video on that. So stay tuned for that video, and I will see you on the next video.